Hello, my Patreon friends, and well, here we are. We are in exclusive territory, exclusive to Patreon. That is HiFi news, etc. from now on. So, what have we got for you? Well, as per usual, we have some HiFi news. Hey, in addition, I will give you a trivia question in a moment, and we have a couple of hints, tips, one from me and one from a fellow patron, a chap named Rob, and I thank Rob for offering his hints and tips. He actually supplied, how many was it? 3, I think. I've got one this week, and I'll filter the others through in future videos. But I'll remind you later on, but if you have any of your own hints and tips you'd like to share, I'm all ears. I would love to see them. So I'll talk about that a bit later. For now, trivia. And this is a fairly quick one, and if you are a fan of the Beatles, it might be rather easy. But if you're not a dedicated fan of the Beatles, this might have you thinking a little bit. So, question is, who are the 2 British political leaders mentioned by name in George Harrison's song Taxman on the album Revolver? And once more, who are the 2 British political leaders mentioned by name in George Harrison's song Taxman on the album Revolver? Now, as usual, please don't Google or any of that research. Just have a think, have a little ponder, and join this video. And at the end of the video, I will give you the answer. For now, HiFi news. First up, we are going to Switzerland, and we're looking at speakers, wireless speakers from Piega. Piega Premium Wireless Gen 2 series speakers, no less. So, Swiss brand Piega has launched the 2nd generation of its premium wireless loudspeaker range. These active speakers use Piega's aluminium cabinets, a new room calibration system, and sealed, that is, non-ported chassis. Built-in network functionality and compatibility includes Apple AirPlay, we've got Google Chromecast, Room Ready, Spotify Connect, DLNA and Bluetooth. Oh yes, and there is HDMI ARC. You also get a sort of wireless control center as well. This hub is controlled via its bi-directional radio remote control or the Piega Control app for iOS and Android devices. Transmission between the Connect Plus hub and the loudspeakers is completely lossless and uncompressed, with a resolution up to 24-bit 96K. The only connection required for each loudspeaker is a power cable. Now, there are 3 models in this entire range, so expect to find 180, well, between rather, 180 and 200 watts for the total output for the floor standards, and there is a bookshelf model, and that has a total output, I'm thinking, of 100 watts for this compact model. Prices, well, I will show those on screen right now, and you can peruse at your leisure. If you'd like to freeze the screen, you go ahead. Next up, we have a pair of headphones from Sony. Sony has announced the MV1 headphones. Well, the full name is the MDR-MV1. So I'll say MV1 for short. These particular headphones, they kind of pay homage to an earlier model, studio-based headphones, you might say, called the 7506s. The new MV1s apparently have been developed by Sony's headphone engineering team and its music engineers. Why? Well, these MV1s are really for use by music engineers, that is, people in the studio creating music. And in addition to that, well, us mere audiophiles as well. So they have a dual target audience here. These are open-backed designs, and according to Sony, and I quote, they are built for mixing and mastering immersive spatial sound, such as 360 reality audio, as well as stereo sound with high-resolution audio, end quote. So yes, this is a nod to the spatial audio of the like I talked about when I did the review of the Sonos wireless speaker. I don't know if you remember that. Anyway, that was all about spatial audio, wasn't it? So yeah, dipping their big toe is Sony into the spatial audio world. And to that end, the MV1 headphones offer a fairly wide frequency range of 5 Hz all the way up to 80 kHz. Sony has also stated that the drivers are uniquely developed, while the cans apparently reduce internally reflected sounds. The designs themselves also apparently offer soft, breathable earpads. Now, Sony has designed the MV1s to be very light indeed. And why is that? Well, if you're in the studio and you're creating there and you're doing that for hours and hours and hours, then the last thing you want are heavy headphones. So these are light indeed. Price, well, I have a dollar price of $470. I'll put a link below if you want to find out a bit more. Next up, we have an amplifier, a network audio amplifier, no less, from Technics. The SU-GX70 is a digital amplifier. And when I say digital amplifier, I really mean that, because this particular amplifier processes your audio signal digitally throughout in all of its stages, from input to output, to prevent, as Technics actually says, and I quote, signal degradation caused by external noise. It features something called a Geno engine, and this stands for, it's one of those acronyms, and it stands for jitter elimination and noise shaping optimization. And that technology has been used within the HDMI ARC sockets, because you get one of those on this box. So that's apparently a first for Technics. This amplifier is also apparently not affected by changes in impedance. Now, Technics uses a speaker impedance adaptive optimization algorithm, and this technology apparently monitors the impedance and it corrects and adapts as it goes to the nuances of the changes in sound quality. The SU-GX70 is equipped with a dedicated power supply that's aimed just at the power amplifier circuits, again, to enhance sound quality, to reduce noise, because this is just aimed at the power amplifier on its own. You also get a high-speed switching power supply of approximately 130 kilohertz. Now, that switching frequency is pretty high, and that's done again to reduce noise. This amplifier offers 40 plus 40 watts into 8 ohms. You get a built-in headphone amplifier, a built-in moving magnet phono amplifier, you get DAB and FM radio, there's USB-A and B sockets, coax and optical sockets too. Available in black or silver. Price is, and I have a pound price this time, £1,699. And finally, we're looking at IFI. Been a little while since I talked about IFI. We're looking at the Go Pod Plus IEMs. Now I say GoPod plus IEMs, but you're supposed to supply the IEMs, or IFI can supply it, and I'll talk about that later, but it's as a pack, a sort of bundle, as it were. What IFI is building and selling here is this GoPod. So, what's a GoPod? Well, the GoPod is a pair of wearable Bluetooth DAC headphone amplifier combos designed to make any pair of corded in-ear monitors, IEMs, wireless. So it turns wired IEMs into wireless IEMs. So in action, well, you detach the cable from your favorite IEMs and you connect instead the earpieces to the left and right pods from IFI. Then you pair your pods with your favorite source, like, I don't know, your smartphone, for example. And then you hook the ear loops behind your ears, and away you go. Now, these GoPods have a phone connection thing, so you can talk on your phone if you get a phone call if you want, so it can do all of that. It has Bluetooth 5.2, and in terms of codecs, because that's a thing with me, I do like a good codec, I must admit. And this one has good codec. Now this one has LDAC, which I like a lot. I think that was produced initially by Sony. And also LHDC. Now, I've never actually heard LHDC. If you have, tell me what you think of it as a codec. I'd love to know. But I've never had the kit to work with LHDC. And I must get around to that. Anyway, it supports, these GoPods supports LHDC too. Apparently it's very nice, but I've yet to find out. Anyway, you can use these to a maximum of 32-bit 96K. Qualcomm's aptX HD and aptX Adaptive, well, they're also included too. And there are other supported codecs too, including aptX Low Latency, regular aptX, and the rather diminutive AAC, and your basic SBC if you need it. There's also something called True Wireless Mirroring. Oh, that's a really tough word to say. Mirroring. I can't hardly say. Mirroring. Anyway, you know what I'm trying to say, hopefully. That's also another option. So what is this TM thing? Well, when you connect your GoPods, they will connect as a single device. Both left and right pods, however, can receive Bluetooth signals separately. So one of them, and it depends, and they decide apparently which one. One of them will have the strongest connection, and that acts as a receiver, while the other pod, depending where you're standing, mirrors the connected pod. If you move position, and the connection to the mirroring pod, I can't say that word, mirroring pod, becomes stronger, they swap over. So basically, whichever pod has the strongest signal, that becomes the dominant pod, and the other mirrors the other pod. So if the left pod gets the strongest Bluetooth signal, that becomes the dominant, the right will mirror. If you move around, and the right becomes the strongest signal receiver, that becomes the dominant pod, and the left becomes the mirror. So basically, you never lose your signal. That's what I'm trying to say. Oh, and each pod includes a DAC chip, a 32-bit DAC chip from Cirrus Logic. Playtime? Well, a pair of GoPods will play for up to 7 hours, while the case provides multiple recharges to enable up to 35 hours of playing time. Now, you can buy these GoPods on their own for £399. I only have pound prices for now. But for the first 1,000 GoPods, IFI is releasing bundles of GoPods and IEMs, and depending what the IEMs are, changes the price. So what I will do, I will put these bundles of various types on screen now, and you can see how much each bundle type costs. And they obviously vary, as I say, depending on the IEM. Here we are. That's your HiFi news, and I'm going to go and practice the word mirror. And here are a couple of hints and tips. Now, 2 hints and tips for you this time around, one from me, the other from our friend and fellow patron, Rob. Thank you again, Rob. Now, just to repeat, if you would like to share any hints and tips relating to HiFi to be published in HiFi News, etc. videos in the future, contact me here on Patreon. As long as there's a HiFi connection, I'm happy to hear your thoughts. Now, it can be related to HiFi hardware itself, or overcoming problems with the same, or enhancing sound quality of the same. It can relate to accessories or DIY solutions or anything at all. So I'm happy to hear from you. So you are very welcome to send in your hints and tips. Firstly, a quick tip from me, and something that's brought up a lot when buying HiFi is part of the conversation. If you are looking to buy a component, a turntable, CD player, streamer, amps, speakers, whatever, ask your HiFi dealer, if you've got one handy nearby, about a home demo. Now, this will allow you to borrow the item itself, install it in your home, your listening room, as part of your HiFi system, and then you can properly judge if that new HiFi component is something you'd like to live with in the future. And that's important because the dealer's listening room may very well be kitted out, but it's still part of a retail space. So it may only go so far in terms of showing that product in its best light. While it's entirely possible the room itself might not absolutely be balanced, well, balanced to suit your ears at any rate. Also, you might hear this new pair of, I don't know, speakers, for example, and you might dislike them, but the fault might not be the speakers. It might be down to some other component in the dealer's system. Now, you don't know because you've just walked in off the street into this dealer's listening room. So you don't know this guy's HiFi system. You don't know its little foibles, its pros and cons. The HiFi retailer might believe that his demo system is perfect because to his ears, it may be perfect, but to your ears, it might not be. See the possible conflict here? So please ask about the whole notion of the home demo. It's possible you might have to leave a refundable deposit or similar, but it's well worth the effort if you're spending a lot of money on a new piece of HiFi kit. And the second tip, the first one from Rob, talks about bodily fluids. Steady now. This is all about vinyl and saliva. Now, as Rob says himself, we've all learned from the pandemic and the information relating to that about the whole notion of talking and spraying. So Rob's tip is this: do not talk by your vinyl. Do not cough on your vinyl. Don't think you're Pavarotti and sing by your vinyl. As Rob says, and I quote, "The moisture can bind to the dust in close proximity or on the surface of the vinyl itself, creating something like a microscopic mudslide." And, you know, he's got a point, because if you've got your vinyl and you're cleaning it or whatever you're doing to your vinyl, and you're chatting away or singing to yourself or whatever it might be, you may very well be spraying your saliva on that vinyl disc. So imagine the gunge. Imagine the gunge, folks. Imagine the horror. So keep stum around your vinyl, basically. Keep your mouth closed when you've got a vinyl disc in your hand. And on that biological note, that's about it. However, you do need an answer to the trivia question, don't you? And to remind ourselves, the question is, who are the 2 British political leaders mentioned by name in George Harrison's song Taxman on the album Revolver? And the answer is Mr. Harold Wilson, who was the Labour leader in 1966 when this song was written, and his Conservative opposite number, Mr. Edward Heath. And that's it, folks. Thank you very much for staying to the end of this inaugural, exclusive, Patreon-only HiFi News Etc. video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll be back next week with another one, because this is where HiFi News Etc. now lives. So, look forward to having your company then. Until next time, folks. Bye-bye for now.